Well, what happened is Chris and some of his friends reached out to me in 2005 looking to see if I had any extra sets because they had broken their sets and were looking to see if I had extra. I found out that I was an inventor online in my biographies. And I said, no, I don't. The extra boxes I have, I'm holding on to. I'm not going to sell the 4 or 5 extra sets I have. And he wanted to know what was going on with it. Is anybody else going to make it? And so I reached out to my old boss, Sam, and said, hey, Sam, what's going on with Spikeball? And he said, I'm showing it. The way the toy industry works is if a company decides to stop making your idea, all the rights to that idea go back to you, the inventor. After Tomy stopped producing Spikeball, all the rights to the invention and to the product go back to Sam, the company I worked for. So he was out there showing it to some companies, and he assured me he had interest from a couple of those companies. And then I told Chris, who I ended up talking to a couple times and emailing back and forth a bunch, that this was what was going on, that as far as I knew, it was going to be made. It sounded like Sammy had some real interest in it. And he would check back occasionally and find out, hey, is anything happening? Is anybody doing it? And I said, let me check again. And Sam said, I don't know. He said, I think it's going to go through. And then Chris came back and said, well, some of us we're thinking we might like to have it come back if we could get the rights. I said, well, I can see if that's possible. But he assured me that he didn't have any money, he didn't have any background, and he didn't have any knowledge of how to do this. So it was kind of hard, so I was kind of in between he and my old boss trying to figure out, okay, how could we work this out with a group of people that don't have any background in the industry who are interested. Finally, Sam wasn't getting anywhere with it, and I reached out to Chris and said, all right, something needs to get done. Let me know if I can help. And I never heard from him again. And the next thing I know is that he went and got the trademark, because the trademark was not actively being used because there was no product there, and started producing it. Next thing I know, Spikeball's being made, and I don't have anything to do with it. Well, I would have liked to have been involved with it, but since he went on his own and didn't involve me, and I love the sport and I love the game, I've been working for the last several years creating my own brand called Club Spike. I support professional teams and amateur teams and teams of all different caliber of playing, and so they can travel and play in tournaments. I'm developing my own products and lines, getting ready to get those hopefully out here within the next year. I run my own tournament called the Inventors Cup once a year in Chicago, and that's a lot of fun because I get to meet all these great players, and I go to Spikeball events and go to tournaments that are closer by, and just hang out. And occasionally I'll play. I'll jump in and get my butt kicked, but it's fun to play, and I still can play in the intermediate levels, not experienced or advanced by any means. So my serves are not that good. So, but yeah, I love the sport, and I'm still, I still want to be involved, and I think I have a lot of good ideas that will advance the sport way farther than it is, because I see how serious players are and how much they would like to see it brought to a level of potentially an Olympic sport. And in order to get there, I have several ideas of how that actually can occur, that it can't happen with the current status of equipment and the rules. I work with a lot of the top players in the world who are giving me feedback and helping me come up with some ideas that I hope to have produced here soon. Every time I watch people play and to see the passion and see how much they practice and how they develop skills, and once a skill like a serve or a cut serve gets perfected, and to see how they react to that skill, and I can't tell you, it's incredible. I get texts from just family and friends who have known me forever and know that I invented this so long ago, telling me I'm at a beach right now, I'm at a park right now, I'm watching them play Spikeball. I'm like, wow. Or people who are reading magazines and see that it's considered one of the best outdoor games right now. And, people tell me how proud they are, that my idea is taken off after all these years. And it certainly, it is humbling for sure. Because, to be an inventor, you hope you invent something that people love. And to finally see an idea that I really loved so long ago become something that millions of people actually are so passionate and love and have made their best friends and met their future spouses playing and stuff like that. That's incredible. I mean, that's, you know, not making money on it sucks, but you know, all the other stuff is, you know, is really, you know, that's all I could have hoped for. You know, it's a dream come true. It really is. And that's why I'm young enough and smart enough to know that I can still be a part of it and really want to use all the skills that I've developed over the last 35 years to take it even further, because it's, you know, I love seeing people play it in their backyards, but if I can help some of these really passionate players get to the level that's comparable to the amount of time that they've spent on the sport, if I can help them really enjoy the sport even more, that would be a great reward. And I'm hoping that that's what I can accomplish here in the future. No, I'm fairly a unicorn that just kind of hides there, and occasionally someone, you know, I'll talk to people and ask them about how long they've been playing, and you know, and they kind of look at me weird. It's like, do you work for Spikeball? And I'm like, well, no, but I invented it. So then it becomes a whole different conversation, and it's a lot of fun. And if I see, like, I have a huge park across the street from my house, and occasionally I'll drive past and I'll see people playing, and I'll stop the car and walk up and talk and maybe jump in, and they'll look at me. I had one a couple months ago. I was talking about the game, and they said, "Oh, are you going to tell me you invented this?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I actually," because I said I've been playing this game longer than any human on the planet, and they're like, "What did you do? You invent this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, actually, I did." So that was fun, and luckily, you know, I can still play, so that's fun. I don't play like the best player in the world because, I mean, I've got other things to do. So, but it's fun. I don't think I certainly want to keep my name and my face out there because, you know, I have an ego too, and I love the reaction when people find out they met the inventor of Spikeball. That's a pretty cool. People should be lucky enough in their life to have some kind of reaction like that when they meet someone, and I certainly enjoy that reaction. So. I mean, I've got them next to me here, like things like I have a game right now that's been out for 20 years now, and it's a game called like What's in Ned's Head. So it's this cool. It's a fabric head, and it's got really gross things inside of it, like cheese and a lollipop and chewed up gum and a brain. And what you do is you put all the things in the head, and each one of these items has a card, and you draw the card and it tells you what to look for, and you have to blindly reach into his ear or nose and to be the first person to pull out that item. And it's become a really popular game among schools for speech therapists, and it's gotten lots of parenting awards. You know, even it's just fun and gross, but there's a lot more involved in educational development when people play that. And it's now been sold for 20 years, and that doesn't happen often in the toy industry. I mean, you get an item out there and it lasts a year or two. Occasionally you'll get an item that lasts that long, and that is an amazing thing. Oh, I've invented silly things, like here's like a ball. It's a high bounce ball. I go to gift stores and I find versions of this that look like a rock, and they're everywhere, every museum store, every gift shop, and they're all over the world, and they've been there for like, you know, 15, 20 years. And I even forget that I invented this thing sometimes. It's crazy. And that's a whole different world. And then my cartooning, I mean, I draw this cartoon for a puzzle which is the most syndicated puzzle in the world, called the Jumble. And we have probably 12 million people play a day who play the puzzle either online or in newspapers. And so that's a whole older crowd. So when I meet people and I meet a grandparent or a parent and I tell them I draw the Jumble, they know what that is. And I have to talk to their kids and say, do you know what Spikeball is? And they know what that is, but neither one of them know the other two things. And once in a blue moon, I will meet a Spikeball player who plays the Jumble, and their minds are blown that one person does both of the things that they love doing every day. So that's a very unique, I find it wonderful that I have such a huge, you know, my talents reach such a broad spectrum of people. It's pretty amazing. Opportunity presented itself. I met, you know, I was inventing games in Chicago. I had an agent who would show my games and stuff, and he knew of another inventor who was working on games similar to what I was working on, he introduced us. And that was David Hoyt. And Dave, unbeknownst to me, had made contacts with the Tribune company who creates the Jumble. And he started throwing these projects at me, and he was wondering, he needed a cartoonist to work on some projects. And he asked me, he's like, do you draw cartoons? I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, that's kind of how I got into art as a kid, is looking at newspapers and drawing the cartoons and like recreating my favorite cartoons. So I started drawing cartoons for him, and jumble cartoons, but not the ones that were in the newspaper, but other projects. And eventually I did enough of them when the gentleman who was drawing the cartoon that was in the newspaper was retiring at age 90. Tribune looked to me and said, hey, do you want to take over drawing the cartoon? And I was luckily in the right place at the right time and took over. And that's been a full-time job, drawing 8 cartoons a week that are seen in over 650 newspapers around the world, on apps and online. And it's become, it's wonderful. I never intended on being a cartoonist, but now I've been doing it for 15 years for the newspaper. So I'm starting to get good at it. I feel like I'm finally starting to do well. And like behind me, I have like 5,000 cartoons on paper that I drew over the years. And about 5 years ago, I finally converted to I draw everything on my iPad. So that's fun. That's helped me become a better cartoonist, because I can erase my mistakes much easier on the iPad than I can on regular paper. I think some changes have to be made to the game itself. I mean, it's going to blow up. People are going to still play it in their backyards and still play it in the parks. And that's going to get bigger. I mean, everybody's going to have a set. That's going to be pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm already seeing that. I don't know many of my friends who don't have one in their garage and don't play it. But I think on the higher level, some rules have to be made in order for it to become a legitimate sport. And when I go to these tournaments and I'm standing talking to the players in between games and matches, I preach my ideas, and a lot of them agree with it. And I hope it eventually becomes a sport that is good enough that people want to watch it on television, that people want to show up and sit in a stand and watch players play. And I think a few different things have to play, because the highest level of Spikeball right now, personally, I don't think is a lot of fun to watch. People serve so well and there's no return. That's not fun to watch. I mean, we need to increase rallies, and that could happen with players changing their skills, having better skills on receiving serves. But I think there are a few other things that can change. But I certainly would love to see, and I hope eventually becomes at least an exhibition sport in the Olympics in the next 8 years. That I would see would be the goal. I think it can happen. I think the passion with the European Roundnet Association or the International Roundnet League and all that stuff, I think the right people are wanting the same things, and it will become something that becomes more of a higher level sport.